Centipedal centaur.
Centipedal centaur. Welcome to the Graphter's podcast. Right. Are we on? Are we live?
I think we're live.
Oh,
Hello,
all right.
Gary.
Hello, John. How's it going, mate?
It's going well. Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas, lovey. Ooh, I tell you what. It's interesting, isn't it, when you can't see anybody apart from your absolute immediate family on Christmas Day?
It was certainly quieter. I did stay away from the computer screen. I must admit. I did stay away for one day. I had one day off.
I didn't go anywhere near a computer. The fact that I had my Remarkable and my phone nearby, and a Wii, and the Xbox 360, and quite a bit of telly. But apart from that, no technology was in front of my face at all.
No, and well, I got a brand new computer chair, so I've got a really comfy leather chair now. That's really nice to sit in.
I've still got the
wobbly one,
creaky wooden one, but it's comfy enough, and that'll do the job for me.
So I spent most of Christmas Day putting the leather chair together, which
Did take a
not
while.
an IKEA job. It was pretty painless, to be fair.
That's all right.
And then the rest of the day was spent catching up on YouTube. Oh, it was better than national television.
Excuse me. Do you know what? I there are times when I agree with you. I have to say that this month, December became a subscription month for us, because I went straight to Netflix when it first came out, so we've had it since it first, early days when there were like 20 things on the entire channel in the UK, and then we got Amazon Prime because of course we have Amazon. We get a lot of deliveries from Amazon. Mm-hmm. And so we thought, well, let's just pay this and not have to pay that much. And we thought, that works out quite well. And then, of course, all the TV, so things like The Expanse, which I bloody love. And then, of course, there was Netflix and that. And then we got Disney Plus, so I could watch The Mandalorian.
Same.
And then just before Christmas, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to have a month of BritBox.
Oh, I went Now TV.
Oh, did you? Right.
Yeah, that's the fourth one that I've got. And I used to moan about Sky Television's prices. And what with Deezer, because I have a Deezer account as well, I think I must be spending £60 a month just on subscriptions to, to content. Now, I'm not being funny, but YouTube is free. And if you can put up with the adverts...
Yeah, well, they're not a big stretch. They're not a big problem.
No, it's pretty good.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that I watch, I'm sure. But we're going to come back to that in a bit, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
But yes, my BritBox has reminded me very quickly about the quality of visual effects on British television in the 1970s, because I've been watching Blake 7. Sorry.
So you were watching Blake 7?
I still am watching Blake 7. It's fabulous. I absolutely love it. But it's the way they teleport down to a planet. So they do the lovely, CSO, so colour separation overlay. So they have the characters against some sort of screen, and then they remove that and show the background, which is the teleportation area. And then they do this, and then they go all wibbly wobbly by doing some really crappy warpy DVE effects, which when I was 7, back in 1977, I thought was the dogs. It was... it was wonderful at the time, and watching it back, I still love it. Yep.
Well, we've picked up Bridgerton on Netflix, which is an absolute brilliant period drama with some fantastic nods to the charts. They've done classical covers of the chart music, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant.
We started watching it last night, and we watched 1.5 episodes, and I just thought, I'm sure I've heard some of this. That's
how we were. I'm on episode 7, so I've not seen the finale, and I'll not give anything away. But
good, yes, don't say another word. Yes,
yeah, definitely, we've really enjoyed it, and looking forward. I'm glad it's been commissioned for season 2.
Oh, has it? Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so
I absolutely love it. We've got to stop doing this. Right, let's start talking about something important.
New skills, Gary. We were going to talk about new skills.
Today are mostly eating snow. Does that class as a skill?
As long as it's white snow?
No, it's yellow. but I has to make it that way first.
Lemonade.
Round the corner, chocolate's made. I missed milk.
Certainly, the skills I've been having a faff in Blender with low poly modelling this month. That's been something I've been having a dig at. Obviously, being a high poly modeller, I really struggled.
No, you didn't. I've seen what you've been doing.
Yeah, the results were all right, but I mean, in my head, I was really struggling how the process worked. I mean, we're really old, and I think you started in NURBS the same way I started in NURBS.
Actually, I started in polygons and then went to NURBS, and then, like everybody else, realised NURBS were a really stupid waste of time. I
started in NURBS, and so I've always. It's very rare that I would be doing low poly stuff, and but I think this is coming back to sort of the YouTube, so we'll come back to that one. Mm-hmm. But what it did, it was sort of kicked on, wasn't it, by... What was I saying? It was kicked on by an article I'd seen on Facebook, which was the Andrew Price Blender Guru video.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Where he's... If you haven't seen it, check out Blender Guru's YouTube channel, where he talks about the making of a cabin in the woods, and he comes clean with some of the problems that are out there with YouTube videos and video tutorials in general, including his own, where he talks about the sanitization of learning, where no mistakes are ever made, and when problems occur, you're not given the tools to deal with them. I think that's basically it. And he also gives a brilliant insight into how he goes about using his fan base to support creative decisions and even change creative decisions that he's making, which I thought was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because what he's done is he's opened up how the community can act like the client effectively. Which we're used to, obviously, the client that goes, wouldn't it be good in blue?
Yes. Well, when a client changes something like the colour of something, that's what we like. When they say, "Oh, we've just got a couple of fixes," and they say the first one is, "Can you just change this? I don't like that colour." And you go, "Yeah, no problem." They're trying to say, "And now can you spin everything 180 degrees?" And we would like all the back doors open. And you're like, "What? No,
just a small change.
Just do the whole thing all over again, please. But just change that to blue."
Oh, and we need it for 12 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, but you have to deliver at 6. Because they've got to send it around the world to be shown at midnight tonight. But they have to vet it first and then send it back to you at 10:30 and say, "Can you just change that colour back to green?"
Yeah, we're not... The blue
we changed our mind.
Yeah. Why did you suggest blue?
Who said that? It was a company director's wife. She's a big fan of aquamarine.
So that was the thing that we've sort of been looking at, was this month's been obviously 2 weeks off from work for me, which has been great. And I've just really been nestling down to learn some skills, mostly from my Instagram feed. My Instagram feed's full of Blender artwork at the moment, and low poly mollies featuring quite heavily. Blender 52, they do quite a lot of reposts on that.
Yep.
And I just
Blender memes are always fun.
I just thought those little the vignettes, are they the vignette? What are they called? The dioramas that they put together, the little orthographic dioramas, are absolutely so cute. They're unbelievable. Yeah. So we were talking about how do you go about learning something new? So, and I know you've got your Gen VFX channel now up and running, which is looking really good.
Slowly but surely.
Certainly from production quality values, I think you are way ahead of everyone else.
Oh, I don't think so.
I think the intros are just so nice.
Well,
as is the intro to our Graphter's podcast.
We try, us Graphter's. But that's the thing that's it, isn't it? I mean, the biggest thing in any pipeline, any project, is you need someone who will do the graft. And I mean that in the FT rather than the PHT. Yeah, you need someone who'll actually do the work. I mean, anything to do with pipeline, anything to do with how we go about doing our job and what we learn.
That's it, isn't it?
Yes.
When we're talking about pipeline, we're talking about doing the job.
Yes.
And I think that
efficiently.
So
that's all it is.
people have these, these buzzwords that roll off. And I mean, I remember in the 90s, buzzwords were, just everywhere. That's how you sold products.
Yeah.
And when I think to what we're doing now with education, and I think about a lot of the education processes are now tied up with software platforms.
Yes.
And it's, you've got to learn this because the industry has this. You've got to learn this. And and then the industry comes back and says, what we're after is soft skills. What we want is and what I've said is, don't call it a soft skill. What you're actually asking for is a hard skill.
Yeah.
You're asking for resilience from the artist or the animator or the VFX person.
Yes.
You're asking for someone who can take complete soul-destroying criticism and turn it into something valuable at the end of it that says, actually, I need to get over myself, I need to have a relook at this, and I need to do a rebuild, which is something Andrew Price talks about in his video. He says that on many occasions he will have taken a project quite a way down a path, and then he will go back and rebuild the whole thing, but rebuild it without the errors. So a lot of the legacy of errors have gone, and things are much more efficient. And I'm just going to sort of segue that into the way that you build your node networks on the Planet tutorial.
Yeah.
Where you're talking about all those node networks, and it's almost like you can see that actually if we can remove that bit of the process by just replacing it with another bit of the process, and we've streamlined the whole thing. And that's what we mean when we talk about the job and pipeline, don't we?
Absolutely, no, completely. I mean, and that's what it is. It's like I've worked before I started working full time for Space Digital. I've worked for a lot of different companies up in the Northwest as a freelancer, and prior to that, at one company for quite a long time as a full-time member of staff. So there was, and that was not including anything I did when I was living down south. So while I've been up here, I've worked with a lot of different people in a lot of different places, and they all have different pipelines. And everybody, and this is the question that everybody thinks. Everybody thinks it's, it must be some sort of big software-y thing. Oh, it's got to be something to do with, they've got like plugins and all different. And fundamentally, pipeline is all about the folders, and that's it. All it is. It's obviously
where stuff's saved and how things are retrieved.
Exactly, and how things are archived and what are not archived. So there's always a scrapbook folder of some description, or like a reference folder which is purely there to be chucked away.
Yeah.
And then there's a versions folder, and the auto saves are basically saved always everywhere I've worked. Auto saves pretty much are outside of the file structure, so they sit someone on a desktop, and that's it. Yeah,
and I think I was working at Sumo when that light bulb moment came on, and it was like I think we were using Shotgun, as the sort of the check-in check-out software, and it was like, it's just a glorified file asset management system. And that's it.
It is a file. That's exactly what it is. But is it necessary?
And I think, but then when you look at, certainly when I look at students, and when we're talking to students at whatever level, whether it be level 3, doing their A levels, or whether it's students on the final year of degree, I would say that I don't think I've ever seen a student that's got it that it's clicked inside of, even though they've had 5 years worth of education. It's not clicked that, to be honest, we just want to see that you're very clean, neat and tidy when it comes to how you deliver your product, whatever that product is, whether it be animation files or whether it be your final renders or whatever it is. Are they named correctly, so there's no silly naming? Just remember, it might cause offence if you send a file around the world that's called I don't know, Jolly Big Thighs or something like that.
Or
because
finally effing finished this whip dev version 7.5_1b final 4.
Hey, and I'm just as guilty.
B7.
I still do it now with my own personal work. I still do it now in my personal work, and it's like, why have I got something called final gold copy 4?
The biggest pipeline. Yeah, no, I know it's stupid. The biggest pipeline thing. The biggest pipeline no, in my opinion, is putting the word final on anything.
Yeah.
It should literally just be numerical. And if you have if you're weird about the number between 12 and 14, then don't use it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It just literally it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Just you don't need a finished one. You just need the one that is the last one,
Yeah,
which will always be the one with the highest number.
Yeah, I mean, I've started using sign off as being the one that I save after the client said, we're happy with it. That's the one that gets saved off, and I know that that's the final one.
Well, then here's the thing. Exactly. What you do is what I do is I save a version of that off.
Yeah.
And I don't call it final. I just stick it into the render folder.
Yeah.
So you're working. So if you're working in a this is the thing, isn't it? It's like it is literally about folder structure, about understanding the do's and don'ts of wastage.
Yeah.
And about being tidy.
It is.
But I mean, there are some really good. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use asset management, because I think it all depends very much on the size of the team that you're working with. If you're working with, say, 200 people who are working in lots of different departments over a grand scheme, you need some solidifying thing, and that's where F-Track or Shotgun or I mean, for crying out loud, even Trello,
Yeah.
And there was one I had to use, Asana. So there's lots of these things, and they keep everyone on track.
Yeah.
But on smaller scale jobs, there's absolutely no reason, there's nothing at all that says you can't just cope by using Google Docs.
Yeah.
And
or OneDrive. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You just need a place where you have a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Which, these are the numbers of all the shots. This is what happens in the shots.
And
this is the person who's doing it.
I'm glad you've said
finished
spreadsheet, because everybody gets on at me at work about my fascination with spreadsheets. But the whole point of a spreadsheet is to logically see incrementations of things and to know, to add and subtract where you are. And I mean, a production is just all of the bits added up to make the whole thing, whatever that whole thing is. And this is why when we talk about, I mean, one of the biggest bugbears that I've got with education at the moment is the fascination with pre-production. It seems like you're in a constant state of pre-production, but you're never actually producing anything. And although I do agree that you should be in a constant flux of change, because that's the nature of creativity, is to be in a constant flux of change, you have to commit to something. And if it goes wrong, you have to be prepared to just redo it. And time is finite, but when you're a student, you've got an abundance of time that's wasted on frivolous things, mostly YouTube, to be fair, which we'll come back to.
It's not always wasted on YouTube. There's some very good people who do some very good tutorials out there. There
is. And that was the other thing that Andrew Price was talking about, was this ability to go back and redo something and not be afraid to say, do you know what, that's not working, let's just do it again or start it over again. And that's what I've been trying to do with my low poly modelling this month, which has been great. And I've just started this sci-fi cover series, which is looking at retro 70s sci-fi covers.
All the Chris Voss stuff and things like that.
Oh yeah, some really nice stuff.
Fantastic.
And it kind of takes me back to when I was working at Cool Beans, and we were working with people like Nick Percival and Dave Milgate. In fact, Dave Milgate's just been doing he's doing a podcast, like a video cast at the moment. He's doing some sort of animation, or he's doing some sort of art direction for a metal band in America. Yeah. And I'm going to apologise to Dave now, because I did watch it and I did listen to it all day, but I'm not very good with heavy metal bands, I'll be fair.
Can I just very, very quickly interject with you, and we'll keep this in the podcast. Do you remember a guy called Adrian Den?
Adi Den. Yeah,
Adi
I do.
Used to work with me.
I know he did.
Yeah.
I don't think Adi liked me.
I don't think Adi likes a lot of people. I think he tolerated me. I love the man. I think he's wonderful. I must admit, when he first started working, you could see there was like this. Probably you found the same thing, which is like we are diametrically different, and he's very much about the process, and really, at least he seemed to be very much about the process, and very heavily wanted to get everything right, and was great at it. And I remember him saying that he worked at Cool Beans in the past, and I was like, just to me, Cool Beans is just an expression for when everything's going well. But
he was fantastic, though. It was a good place to work.
Yeah, I can imagine. And he's a lovely, lovely bloke. I really think that. And he went. Him and his girlfriend moved. They went travelling.
Australia. They went to Australia.
No, New Zealand.
New Zealand.
So I haven't spoken to him in ages. And hopefully at some point this will be out in the airwaves. And if he ever hears it, I just want to say hello, mate. I think we can both say hello, mate, can't we?
Hello, mate. Yeah. I'm not a knob anymore.
Well, he says he's not a knob anymore. He's not as big a knob as I made, if that's any help.
We've mellowed out. I mean,
The question is, I think 80's probably mellowed as well, because he mellowed. I found when he told me he was going, I was heartbroken.
Oh.
Because it's like wearing a great. This is going to say a horrible analogy, but you know when you get a new pair of shoes and they're really tight and they're really uncomfortable, and then after a while they soften, and then before you know it, you wear them, and you're not even realizing you're wearing them, and then they get a hole in them, and you've got to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And it's just it was like a really, really comfy pair of shoes, but just before he left, and I was like, I don't want him to go, because we'll only get it with someone who's it's not going to go well with. Poor fella.
But I mean, this was the whole point. I mean, when we were at Cool Beans, for instance, we had people doing, like, we were working with Simon Bisley, Kev Walker, all these great illustrators, and coming back to there was just something about art, and I always remember I met Kev Walker early 90s when I was working on a little games project called Unification, Mars Unification, which was like, it was actually done in Wavefront. All the animation was done in Wavefront, so it was absolutely awesome to work on. And I was a real, snot-nosed little kid at that time. And I remember Kev talking about how he went about the process of blocking out using, I think, Cinema 4D or something like that. It was really random stuff, and we were like, "Oh, you should be using Alias Wavefront." He was like, "Why?"
Was it Lightwave?
I don't think it was Lightwave. I mean, it might have been Max.
3D Studio.
It might have been Max, but he just said he just created lots of cubes, and then once he got the perspective in this forced perspective, he just then painted over the top of it. And I was like, "That's pretty cool, that." And that's what we're talking about. It works. Yeah, do you know what? I was thinking back to what were the software? I mean, we talked about soft image last time, didn't we? Soft image.
Yeah,
soft
but if we're just talking about the things that just hang around the edges, when it comes to this industry, Bryce is one of those. TerraGen is one of those. Actually, TerraGen's superb. I don't know what else there was, or there is.
Well, there's Modo, but that's pretty mainline. Isn't it?
It's more mainline now. Yeah. Even though it definitely seems to be becoming a one-trick pony.
Nerves.
Knives. Well, no, actually, it's the procedural stuff it's got now is just brilliant.
So that's going to be my bit of a project, is the sci-fi covers. That's going to be the project as we're moving forward.
Yeah.
And hopefully the projects that we were talking about, if that ever comes up.
Yes. I mean, I can. Would you like me to have a quick mention about it now?
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool.
Are you sure? Okay. About, good heavens, how many years ago now? I would say somewhere in the region of 10 years ago, I had an idea which came literally out of nowhere. I saw a picture of an African mermaid, and underneath it was the words Mami Wata. And Mami, M-A-M-I, and Wata, W-A-T-A. And Mami Wata is basically an African water spirit. And I started throwing around some thoughts in my head. I don't want to go into all of it into too much detail right now, because it needs to sort of like be a bit more of a. I mean, it's all fleshed out, but that's not the point. I don't want to tell the whole context of what the story is, because it'll ruin it. But I ended up coming across some other stuff and had some ideas. I started seeing some artwork, but not really. It's not about the African mermaid. It's about somebody else and their strong connection, the strong familial connection, and there's a lot of things that happen because of this familial connection, and obviously it all takes place. I say it all takes place. It takes place in two places. It takes place on the African savannah, and it also takes place in the bottom of the ocean. And that's all I'm going to say about it, apart from the fact that it's a character-led animation that doesn't require anything other than sound and pictures to tell the whole story. So you don't need any. There's no voices. There's no words as such. I don't.
It's like the snowman. Really, we're going for the snowman. Bring it up to date.
Let's not go for this demo. I was about to try and sing "We're Walking in the Air," but Moana. I might be able to sing like The Rock, but I can't
sing.
Let's
go for it.
I still haven't seen Moana.
Oh,
I know.
I'm a bit of a nerd on Frozen, actually. My wife thinks it's absolutely hilarious, but I really get excited about Frozen because there's so much animation that goes off on Frozen that's just blows your mind.
When Marie met your mum and dad, Did your parents turn around and go, "He's a bit of a fixer-upper"? Um,
No, my mum said he's a wonderful cook, but he's the messiest cook you'll ever meet in your life.
oh, good Lord.
And that is still true right now.
Yeah, you see, I have to say, tidy kitchen, tidy mind. Not tidy desk, tidy mind, but tidy kitchen, tidy mind. Anyway, so the point is that I've had this idea for a very, very long time, and it has developed slightly, but only by small amounts. It's never been as like a huge like throw around. This idea never is going to work. I'm going to change it all again. So
you told me about 3 weeks ago about this idea.
Oh, I've had this idea in my head for over 10 years.
You walked me through it, and I went away, and I came back, and I went, I want to do it.
Yeah, thank you. That's no, genuinely, thank you. I mean, I haven't told too many people about it, and but when I told somebody else recently, because I said I want you to learn Blender, I want you to learn Blender, and this is the perfect opportunity because he wants to learn anyway.
Yeah, I've got Sedley learning Blender, to be honest. It's down in is he? Well, I don't know where he's now. Sugar Hill.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are making, not so much making the switch, but they're stepping into Blender.
He's Cinema 4D. Well, his sons are. His sons have gone into the 3D side for him, but he spends more time in After Effects, as you know. But he did ask about you. He did tell me to remember him to you.
I always think about Sed. Yeah. We've never met. We've had a telephone conversation once. We never met, but we both know each other, which is very peculiar.
I am really good at actually getting Sedley to go to the Big Smoke. Whenever I've been down there, I've always tried to make sure we meet up at some point. And then I realise I'm driving when I get off the train. So Sedley doesn't drive when he gets off the train. He literally walks home. So he lives in Reigate.
Yeah.
Although his tickets are more expensive than mine to Doncaster. Which is
yes,
mad.
It's the joys of living in London, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the point is that, and this is what John has suggested. Anybody who's interested out there, is that
we're going to make it.
We take the idea, and I'm writing a shooting script at the moment, and turn it by using pretty much just open source software into a full animation, and it's roundabout, but it's going to be between 5 and 8 minutes, no longer than 8 minutes, or anything like that.
Do you know what, Gary?
And initially, I was going to do this all by myself. Oh, sorry, John, I want to just make this point completely clear. I was going to do this all by myself, and this is the reason why it's never going to get done. So
it takes a bit of an arsehole like me to come along and go, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that.
Yeah, it was kind of like, and it initially made me sort of go, how dare you? That's mine. I don't want anybody else working on it. But actually, the truth of the matter is that, I'll very happily just end up with, a director's and story writer's credit on the thing. I will obviously, but that's the thing. It's something that I can oversee and make sure I'm happy with the results. But I'm more than happy to get other people to do stuff.
But the thing is, Gary, we started talking about this in an open source conversation.
Yeah.
And I just thought, he's sharing. This is brilliant. This is an open source thing. Let's do it. This sounds brilliant. And then didn't really think about, actually, I've just taken somebody's dream and basically exposed it to the world.
Well, no, it's not a dream, but it is a dream. It is. But I'm telling too much again.
But the whole thing is, I think because we've got this Graphter's podcast, and this is what this is about. It's open source.
Yes,
I think this is going to be a fantastic shop window for the open source world. And there are, I'm massively into the Astartes fan based Warhammer videos that are popping up on YouTube at the moment. They're absolutely
amazing,
mind blowing.
They are, and and the thing is, this guy's one person on his own. There's
three now, but the Patreon's growing. Yeah, there's three.
Yeah, but it was originally
really
just him. And it was when the money got right, he was able to crack on and do all that stuff. But every single one of them is just beautiful, and on a frame by frame basis, they're practically art. And all of the any single like a gunfire or anything that comes out of it is just.
I mean, I'm Patreon. I am actually on the Patreon for that at the moment. The Astartes.
I do feel as though I've got to pull my finger out there and put more money back. I mean, I was a Blender Cloud subscriber for over 12 months, and I just had to. There was a point where I just had to look at everything and go, right, what can I lose? What can I stop paying towards? And now I use Blender. I still don't use Blender mostly for work. although I do dip into it quite a bit and use things from it. And that, because let's be honest, I think we mentioned this last time. I know a lot of people who are using Blender now to build stuff in, and then they animate it and everything else. But the modelling tools are great, and they're simple to use. I mean, it's like as Infenzia says, E to extrude, S to scale, I to insert. And it is. There's a lot of modelling is just that. E to extrude, S to scale.
I think there's a bit of a shout out there. I think if anybody wants to learn Blender very, very quickly, subscribe to Infenzia's YouTube channel. He's an absolute joy to watch.
His English is better than my English, and he is Swedish.
He is Swedish, and I think the other thing is as well, he's really passionate about what he does.
Really passionate, yes.
He keeps everything to 10 minutes. He times it and everything, and he's just a
really
cool guy. Yeah, we should do that. Yeah, yeah. We're ruefully, woefully bad at timing anything.
We're ruthless with our waffling, particularly myself. Yes, I think yes. I think.
So Astarte's definitely a YouTube channel you should be subscribing to, and definitely a Patreon if you're into Warhammer and 40k.
Absolutely.
Definitely worth a look. I mean, but I think the big thing is, I think a lot of Warhammer fans, a lot of CGI people, when I don't know if you remember the Warhammer 40k animation that came out, that long 1 hour, I think it was called Ultramarine or something like that. It was atrocious. I mean, it was like, oh my god.
Well, it makes you realise that Astartes has actually done what they should have done on his own.
Yeah.
On his own.
On his own, yeah. And I mean, there's actually, I've seen the making of clips as well, where he doesn't have motion capture suits. He basically videos himself diving around in his living room or outside. Which
is the way most people animate, by the way.
Yeah, and I used to call it, I mean, my students used to laugh at me, but I used to call it dirty mocap.
It's reference.
It literally is. I mean, it's the best form of reference because you can eyeball everything in, but then you can do the artistic thing and exaggerate things and clean things up, which I think is always a big problem with mocap.
Very quickly, just to remind me, is he doing this in 3ds Max?
He is, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
I was just trying to remember.
The thing about 3ds Max is it's got a really good puppet tool that's built in that you can just use, and I think Blender has the same capabilities. Yes, it has the same capabilities. It's just slightly more difficult to do, which is.
I have to say, can I just say very, very briefly, and I'm not. This is not me. I have done character animation. I would not say I'm very good at it, but I've done some, and I have never done any in Blender. But I needed for the Christmas tutorial.
Yes, I saw your
my reindeer that had one foot that never left the floor after the first step. That I fixed immediately. I finished editing the video thing. I was like, "Oh, you Gary, you flipping idiot!" But I wanted it. I wanted to rig this. I mean, I built the model. I built the reindeer in sort of like, and UV'd it in like 40 minutes. 40 minutes altogether. It was just it didn't take long. But I mean, it was just a matter. It was like I knew it wasn't going to be difficult. But I only had the image from the side. Yeah. So that slowed me down a bit and forced me to make a few errors, which I obviously corrected before I rigged it. But the rig was built from Rigify, and it was so lovely because it's not just a human being. You've got the ability to make, create. If you wanted to create something with 4 limbs on the ground and then 2 pairs of arms higher up, so almost like sort of like a centipedal centaur. Love that. I've got to remember that.
Centipedal centaur.
Centipedal centaur. And so you've got this sort of like 2 pairs of arms and
or a centipede.
Oh. So
Rigify, great little add-on.
It's fantastic. I was absolutely blown away. And once, and of course, granted, it's a low poly mesh. I did not have to change a single weight. Not one.
I mean, that's one of the things that I find just really fascinating about the way that Blender does certain things. And I know we've talked about the way that Blender coders, the coders behind Blender, do a heck of a lot of cleanup on their code before it even gets to alpha stages, which is great. Which I'm not saying other software packages don't do that, but but whatever. You end up with this really. It just works. I mean, it it's got a proximity. I mean, I've done some stuff in Houdini recently, and Houdini's got quite a very, very mature node network in there that does a lot of logical calls for proximity of things, and then you can build from that. You can build meshes or effects or particle clouds or volumetrics or whatever else it comes out of, and literally Blender's doing that in a very, very low end way with things like Rigify and the way that it does its rigging. And I always used to say, nothing would beat Maya's rigging system, and I still say that Maya's rigging system is, when you're animating with it, it's superb.
Yes.
But putting the rig together is a nightmare.
It can be horrendous. But they have the full body system now, which is good. I mean, it's not bad. But the one thing that I utterly, utterly love about Blender's rigging system is if you then go in and make your bendy bones, it automatically rebuilds all the weights on those bendy bones.
I've not done that yet, so.
Oh, wait till you do that.
Looking forward to that one.
Wait till you do that. I know you're doing lots of low poly stuff. So at the minute, basically, what I'm doing is trying to force myself to learn every single modifier, and and that's part of that's part of what I've been doing.
Yeah, that's what you're doing on your channel, which I think that's brilliant, because there's a ton of stuff. I did find out just quickly. I meant to say this to you the other day, but obviously we've both been sort of like, well, I'll wait for you to pop up on Facebook before I get in touch. Otherwise, it's him again.
No, not at all. No, John, not at all. You know that. You just listen. Just
F9.
Just get in contact with me. Yeah.
F9 brings back the menu. You know when you click off of a new thing that you've done, and you click off it and it's gone. F9 brings it back.
So you can edit it again.
Yeah. So if you, I don't know, maybe
if you've made a sphere and you've decided how many edges there are and stuff and faces.
Yeah, and I can't remember where I saw that. I was on one obtuse video I was watching. I was like, whoa, just rewind that. What does that mean?
Yeah.
But it brings us nicely back to what we were saying about subscriptions, because we wanted to go back to subscriptions. I am going down our checklist.
It's good. It's good.
I am like the voice in the box, aren't I? Get back on script.
Well, there's nothing wrong with bringing something new to the table.
I'm going to ask you now, Gary.
Yes.
How many subscriptions?
Oh, right.
Have you made? I think I've got. Let me just have a look.
I can tell you how many exactly I've got. Hang on.
I've got 128 subscriptions.
Okay. Are those all Blender?
I'd say 110 are Blender.
Or 3D oriented.
Or VFX oriented, like Corridor Crew or something.
Okay.
Like that.
Well, in that case, I can promise you that, in fact, I'm just checking that because I have got, what is it? 193 subscriptions.
I need to get my act together.
No, don't be daft. Of which, hell, I'm just seeing how many of these I've got. Obviously, I listen to a lot of music and stuff when I'm working. So it's a Music Lab and Epic Music VN are at the top there, along with Infenzia and Bloom and Corridor Crew, of course. CG Cookie, Suede Neistat. I can't remember how you pronounce his surname. Then just the Blender one, and then there's one which isn't, which is Wheezy Waiter. I do like Wheezy Waiter.
My top 7 are Linus Tech Tips.
Yes.
Where I get all my sort of hardware computer porn from. I've sort of got into this. There's one called Thalasso Hobbyist, I think it is. Hobbyer, which is basically he or she, you never see the face, it could be a he or a she, you never see the face, makes little miniatures from scratch. And I will share it with you, Gary, because it's so worth watching.
Absolutely.
But I was watching that to get inspiration out of the sort of the 3D low poly stuff that I was doing. And then on there I've got Default Cube, always good for a laugh. Says it as it is, pulls no punches.
Says it as it is, very quickly with no breathing.
Infenzia is on there. Gen VFX is on there.
Who?
Been watching you a lot.
That idiot. No, don't watch him.
Corridor Crew, because there's been some big updates on Corridor Crew for some of the stuntman stuff that they've been doing, I think. And Wimpy Brothers, which is a guy called Alex Jarrett who's rebuilding. He rebuilds wrecked cars. But this is a guy who I sort of actually got in touch with and did some merchandise for him because. And I didn't ask for any money on it. I just sent him a pack of merchandise. I did him a baseball hat, some hoodies and T-shirts and stuff like that. Because
that's nice.
He was trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we sort of went on a bit of a push, and he's now over the 1,000 subscribers. What I would say now is, Alex, if you're listening, the adverts come at the wrong time, mate. They're just really annoying.
Yeah, the Offensia ones have started coming literally at the very, very end. And
Yeah.
I quite like that.
Yeah, I think if you just can sort out, just weight it properly, because then you're not sort of interrupting your flow when you're on it. But
Yeah,
other
it's
than that-
are they coming slap bang in the middle?
yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's...
Yeah. That
That's
just means he's been a bit lazy and he needs to sort his stuff out.
Have you got Gleb Alexandrov?
I have, but he's a bit further down. Grant Abbott's next on my list. He just missed out on the top 7, and then Josh Gramble for his hard surface porn.
Ducky 3D?
Ducky's dropped down, but I picked Ducky up on Patreon, so that's why. I'm pretending not to watch him on YouTube. I'm watching him on Patreon because Ducky, I do subscribe on Patreon.
Ducky's not listening to us. No one's listening to us.
If he does, he'll give us a shout back, I'm sure.
I'll tell you
with
who
his
else.
hundreds of thousands of followers.
Yeah, there's a guy called Chris
And
P.
Ask Enki. Ask Enki.
Ask Enki.
Number 10.
He's good. There's obviously, yes, CG Cookies in there for me as well. And there's a guy called Chris P. And I think he does tips, tricks, and training using Blender. And he's got about 23,000 subscribers. And he releases a video pretty much every single week. And he teaches things about it. The reason why I found out about him was when I was trying to...
32,000 subscribers.
Sorry?
32,000 subscribers.
Yes, did I say 33?
Yeah, you did.
Sorry.
Well, you rounded up. You rounded up is what you
Well,
did.
fair enough. But I was learning about the node system, the animation nodes. And I know CG Cookie, not CG Cookie, sorry. What's his name? We just mentioned him.
Venzia?
No. The chap who cuts out all his air gaps.
Oh, Default Cube.
Yes, Default Cube. So he had a course at the beginning about how to do all the node stuff when it first came out as a plugin for it, and it made a lot of sense. But I just also needed another one. I just needed another source of information. So this guy Chris P did a shed load of them, and it was all about using the animation nodes, and it was just beautiful being able to have another second set of videos that I could just watch and go, oh my god, that's fantastic. So my pipeline now, if we're going to bring it right back to the beginning, is model it first. Obviously, get all the modelling done. But I want to come back very quickly to something else in a second. Before this, model it, UV it, rig it if it needs rigging, or rig it even if it's hard modelled and needs animating. Animate. Do a render using probably normally cycles, and then pump it out as EXRs, and then comp it in After Effects. But I have just recently started using the comping inside of Blender because there are some things, there's some little things in there that you can do which are a doddle, which you can't do quite so easily in After Effects. Oddly enough,
chromatic aberrations.
That's the one. Mainly
like,
that. Yeah.
It's like, wow, that was quick. And then the fact that you can set the Eevee renderer to do it for you as well. Then
yes, the chromatic aberration.
One pass.
Yeah, no, it's and one of the motion. The fact that you can get motion, the more passes out of Eevee is superb. It's great. But there's something you mentioned, and you kind of bypassed it because you said you feel as though it's something which is very much the big thing that everyone thinks you should be talking about and should be doing. And you said it's not quite as important. I hasten to disagree, and I just didn't mention it at the time, and I'm going to mention it now, and that is pre-production. There is nothing, John, more important than pre-production. Because if you don't do any of it, your production will end up falling into a pipeline hole.
However, what I am trying to say is, if you, it's kind of like when you're a student. You're force-fed pre-production by the awarding bodies, whichever one it is. It doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Pearson or UAL or whoever it is.
Okay.
But I think the context of the pre-production gets missed. And the context of the pre-production is that when you're in pre-production phase, i.e. you're in your very early embryonic stage of idea generation, separate that out from pre-production, because pre-production is getting your ducks in a line and getting set up ready so that you can actually produce some things. And I think the problem that we face, certainly in academia, is that we end up with almost allowing the student to not produce something, but to have had a great idea, and to have taken that great idea to a point where if you handed it to a professional, then it would have been created. But what we want to do is we want to bridge the gap, so that there's got to be a stage where you cut off and I'm trying to think of the word, when you talk all the time about it, and procrastination, it's creative procrastination is what what happens, and they're talking about things that they've not tested. So therefore, when it comes to the actual production phase, suddenly they can't meet their ideal dream, and the whole production phase falls flat on its face, because then the argument is, if I'd had more time, and this is the end when they do their diagnosis of how their product turned out, I would have learnt more about the things I wanted to do than spend my time actually dreaming up all these amazing ideas that just never went anywhere.
Okay, well, I think that's a problem with education. I don't think that's a problem with the industry, because
I never said it was.
No, that's fine.
I think when we do the replay back, I was talking about education, and that's why I wanted to get that in there.
No.
Because I do agree. There is wholeheartedly a rationale for pre-production, and I would also say that some awarding bodies like UAL have got it right with the way that they say you should constantly revisit your design process to reaffirm that you're going through the right, can there be amendments made, which is kind of what we're talking about when we talk about client feedback.
Sure.
Although you don't have a client when you're working as a student, and I think that's the biggest problem. And again, I'll go back to what we were talking about with Blender Guru, where he opened it out to his viewers and said, what do you think? And that was great. Yeah, that's good stuff. I'm just mindful of time as well, Gary. I know we had a break.
Yeah, very true.
So what we were saying is that between us, we've got probably quite a lot of repetition on our playlists on YouTube.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. It's that most of these guys have been using open source software, particularly Blender, in production a lot longer than we do. And what we're doing is we're just upskilling our skill set to match what we already know in things like packages like Maya and After Effects and other things that we do probably a similar level to them, if not better for you, certainly, because you're still operational.
Well, let's not let's not push it too much. I am still operational, but that doesn't necessarily mean that. I see work by people and I'm just gobsmacked and I think, how the hell did they do that? So it's like anything. You've got to keep on learning. So
great segue there, Gary, into a VFX old and new.
Yes, very much so. So the reason why we're just going to mention this is because I was watching. Corridor Crew basically have nailed it. We both agreed with this just before we started recording. Is that Corridor Crew have pretty much nailed this? Like, here's old visual effects, here's brand new visual effects. Oh my god, that looks crap. Oh my god, that still holds up. Oh my god, that looks amazing. And they have someone from the industry there to talk about it, and that's one of the reasons why we watch Corridor Crew, because it's good, obviously. Can
you imagine if Framestore did that? I'd be fascinated if Framestore or DNEG just allowed some of their art guys just to sort of like go completely mental on other productions.
Write that down. Write that down. There are people. We'll be calling people. No, well, we will be at some point. But no, what it was all about what holds up and what doesn't hold up and why.
Yeah.
And, if you watch Jurassic Park, it still holds up. Whereas
some of the colour grading's a little
second
bit
Jurassic
off
Park
these
film,
days, but yeah.
it's a painful exercise. It's a good film in its own way, but some parts of it just don't work because of the way it's been shot and the way it's been put together. Whereas in the first one, obviously you've got Steven Spielberg there who knows how to make a good film.
Yeah.
But it's like, you've got a shot. Say there's a lovely shot when the lights have gone off. The two cars, they're on the track near the T-Rex paddock, and there's a shot which is the camera looks up and it sees the great big head of the T-Rex just like swinging above the car. The camera then pans down, and the T-Rex walks to the other car. And because you've got the actual physical model here, when you cut to where the 3D one is going to be, your brain sees the quality of this one while that one's going there. And it's just knowing what works in terms of the frame and how things will always look great. And that's a very good example. But for me, what it was that really struck me yesterday was I was sitting in here, I was doing some design work for somebody, just building some logos. And I wanted something in the background which was just a noise that would just keep me going. But I didn't want to... I listen to a lot of ambient music and a lot of epic music and a hell of a lot of like work music that just I cycle out of YouTube. Just drop the picture quality because I'm not really interested in it. But I just wanted something which was a film that was just in the corner. And I decided on Netflix. On Netflix right now, there is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And I haven't seen it in ages and absolutely love it. And I kept finding myself getting drawn to it, and I couldn't get over how good the visual effects looked. And it's because there isn't a single 3D rendered visual effect in there. Everything has been done optically. And the best visual effects in there, very much like in Jaws, where the reason why the shark looks so good is because you don't see it until you see it when you realise it looks terrible, is there's a lovely shot. There's a beautiful shot of Richard Dreyfuss in his car, stopped at a road section, and some lights of a car come up behind him, and he just waves them on, and instead of these lights sort of like going to the side, they just rise up, and as they rise up, another row of lights underneath come up as well, and then another row of lights underneath that. So this thing is like, it's a spaceship. It's not. It's like 12, 13 maybe different lights, probably nailed to 3 pieces of wood on string that are just lifted up. But it's not. It's a bloody spaceship. Because your brain just does what it needs to do.
Well, I mean, this was the thing. I mean, I think I started the conversation off by saying I'd watched Guardians of the Galaxy 1, Vol 1, and I was almost looking for the aged effects now that we're in obviously 20. We've just had Captain Marvel, and obviously we had Captain Marvel a couple of years ago, but the whole thing's moved on, and yet because of the way that Marvel went about it, and I think Framestore were heavily involved with the VFX that were in the original Guardians of the Galaxy, it just holds up, and it's because I think I met a guy called Remus when I was at FMX who worked at Trickster. And I just sat next to him in the audience, and we got talking about render farms, because I'd literally just bought my own, and we were talking about render farms. And he was telling me about the cat in Captain Marvel. And we were sort of talking, and he was just telling me about the amount of iterations they did on the cat's fur. And to the point where they actually got rid of all the cat doubles. I think there's only one real cat, in Captain Marvel. And the rest are all CGI. But that's what you're talking about with Spielberg when you talk about Jurassic Park. The attention to detail was so finite on that film that it had to work. It literally had to work. And I think the problem is that a lot of, I mean, I'd say that, if you look at Taboo, the TV series that was on, that was all the VFX was done by Blue Bolt in London, and they had, they had film set production value, and Blue Bolt basically did the first couple of seasons of Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
some of the big things. So they'd come off of sort of big production from HBO and then gone sort of down, but they kept that same standards rolling forward. And I think a lot of VFX gets lost because some of the teams on it, again, we're going back to production pipeline and everything else, don't fully, understand the amount of work that goes into that.
No,
that creating those shots.
Yeah.
And being committed to those shots.
I'm not sure I mentioned. I may have mentioned this to you before, but there was some chatter about Black Panther.
Right.
Have I mentioned this to you?
No.
If you watch the film, all the effects look amazing.
Except the last shot when they're on...
The sequence when they're fighting on the
and that is on Corridor Crew. Corridor Crew did a breakdown.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I was trying to... And I heard something else about it as well, and it was kind of like, basically, it was a matter
They ran
of
out of
time
time.
and budget.
Yeah, they ran out of time. But that's what I'm sort of saying, sort of to students as well. You know, this is the kind of thing. That's almost a prime example to show the students and say, look, here is the production. What an amazing film. You know, you've absolutely nailed, you know, the whole premise of how Black Panther and the character is evolved and everything else. You've completely complemented it with CGI. And then the final bit, no one remembers the end of the movie because it's like, well, it's the fight sequence between the two protagonists. And
it's meant to be the big thing.
It is, and it's just not.
It's not. No, and it's a real shame when that happens. But
and the other, I'll tell you another guy that's on YouTube that I'm really watching as well is Marco
Polo.
Marco
Polo
Matsovic, I think his name is. He's Australian, and he does a lot of Blender stuff. Markham 3D is his channel, and
yes, I know.
He works in the Australian government doing visualizations and things, but he's just published something where he's using OneDrive and SharePoint in OneDrive for 3D space, which apparently Blender just fits quite well with it. So that's going to be something I'm going to be doing in the new year as well. Whatever, look at that and see how we can get that moving. Maybe with our production, you never know.
That would be well. This is the thing that would be wonderful. But I think just very quickly, just before we're gonna have to wrap up pretty sharpish, I think.
We are.
But about the VFX old and new, you're absolutely right. It would be lovely to get a few people to get on board and just talk about things they've worked on. I can talk about the one film that I've worked on, so that's that my frame of reference is pretty poor. But
mine's all either stuff that never really hit the light of day with Cool Beans, or it's just games.
Yeah,
which, you know, it's not quite the same thing.
But you know, I think my opinion on what makes good VFX last is a lot of it is to do with the planning.
Yeah. Well, planning, yes.
Yeah. A lot of it is to do with the pre-production, because you work out what is the best method and then or what is the only method, and then you
commit to it.
And then you commit to it. You commit to it wholeheartedly. And then also
I think that's
you
what's
have to have
missing
also
from the
a vision.
education pipeline. The education pipeline is missing the commitment, being enforced almost as a sort of as a almost a unit in itself.
Yeah. And I think you said it right when you said there's no client, and I think that is something which should essentially be rectified. There's already a lot of people who take students straight out of university or whatever, and they say, right, can you build this? Can you build this? Can you build this? Yes, you can build all those. Right, come in for an interview, and then they get them in and they start them off in the bottom layer jobs, and then they feed them through the industry. So they feed them through that pipeline, with their own pipeline of how they create the people that basically reach those higher level positions and the mid-level positions, and so there's a nice streamline of people travelling through the business, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. That's great,
and I mean,
because it gets people in.
And we've got some great work going on with Next Gen Skills Academy through Marcia Deakin and Phil Atfield, who pulled together the industry, Framestore, and all the other big industry people. And they are doing stuff now that works. It does work, but a lot of it does then sit at the doors of. It's almost there's still a disconnect between the industry and education, because they're providing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's that client. You're right. It is the missing ingredient. Is just that little bit of realism in telling someone that they need to crack on and get something done.
Yes, exactly, and that is something that I think that would help. And the idea with this short film is we get it out, we get students involved, and I'm going to treat them like they're real people working in the proper industry. So I will be saying that is not what I gave you to do. Do it again. Yeah. And if they turn around and say, "I'm sorry, I can't do that again. I'm finished now," I'll say,
you
fine,
can't do it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Don't worry. That credit you wanted on the end of the film will not be there.
Well, it's almost like we could give them a credit, but it'd be like the chum bucket credit.
No, we're going to need a bigger boat. No, I'm not doing that. But I mean, I just want people. I want people to appreciate. I want people to understand that if you're involved in a process, in a production process like this,
Yeah. I mean,
you
we
need to be professional.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of ideas about how we can actually reach out beyond. I mean, I'm not just talking about people that I'm actually dealing with day to day. I think there's almost, through the YouTube channel, hopefully, we will be able to attract people to get to this.
Yes.
And then we can get on with it.
Yeah.
So on that note, as it is New Year's Eve.
It is when we're recording this.
Yeah, I think we should say Happy New Year. Goodbye 2020.
Goodbye. That was it. That was that for me. Just that's it. I'm staying up to midnight so I can just give the finger to 2020.
Maybe a bit of moon.
I'm so over this year. I'll tell actually, in a way, a lot of good things have happened this year, and I think it's the same with a lot of people who have. And something we were going to talk about, we haven't, which is that during lockdown, people have gotten more creative and gotten more involved in open source. So we'll do that. That'll be the first thing we do on the next one.
That's the January problem. Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think apart from the good things, which have been good, I think, like deciding finally to do this podcast we've been talking about for a few years, and getting out there has been getting stuff out and stuff is great.
Yeah.
But apart from that, this year has been just
bonkers.
It's hopefully it will go down as being the dark ages of the 21st century.
Maybe.
We can hide it under the carpet somewhere with the lint and the pieces of dog kibble that's like vanished. So
well, you take care, Gary.
And
it's
you too, mate. Happy
an
New Year.
absolute pleasure. Happy New Year.
I'll probably speak to you tomorrow.
I'll speak to you next year.
More than like, speak to you. Oh yeah, no, I'm only going to speak to you. I'm not speaking to you anymore this year. Go away.
Yeah. So it's goodbye from you,
and it's goodbye from him.
Goodbye.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Everything about you. Everything about you.
This work is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 international license. Any opinions stated during the course of this podcast belong purely to myself and to John and are based at the time that we record this. The theme music is My Everything by DJ Quads. If you like that, and I'm sure you probably did, there is a lot more of his great stuff which you can find at soundcloud.com/DJ Quads, or his music is also promoted by www.free-stock-music.com.